So I'm going to assume everybody's already dealing with your code's all semantic, and everything is CSS based and all that for your front end work, and so it's probably really easy to have these like human readable things in your back end because they probably match these human readable things in your front end. So one of the things that that I come across all the time when I'm cutting up a site is that I've got CSS that controls, you know, all these like hover states and buttons and navigations and submit buttons and those sorts of things, and it's in like normally you have to write some logic to determine what page you're on, so you can control what item is rendered, blah blah blah, however you want to render it, or you actually have to hard code a new requirement to your CSS or your ID or whatever that can display differently. So for example, in navigation, if you want to maintain a hover state on the page that you're actually on, you'd actually have to write some logic that would say, hey, make this active, and maybe you have a little CSS thing that has new display parameters for this active thing. Well, one thing that Jason pointed out when I was coming across this, and this is actually for the navigation of project I'm working on, is I've used this here, and I assume it's right because it actually works. So if it's not, but this is just a little bit of I assume that's Ruby, right? No, that's not Ruby on Rails. That's Ruby, right? Talking to my controller.
Yeah, that's the controller is an object.
Right.
Rails
So
gives you.
all I've done is obviously just in my body, I've ID'd my body as this controller name, and that controller name corresponds with the actual navigation item in my page navigation. So essentially what I've been able to do by doing that is actually drill down with my CSS to not actually have to write any logic to determine what page I'm on, because I've got a predetermined ID that I can talk to, because my navigation carries from page to page, and I don't want to ever have to write logic in there that manipulates any of that. So this is all I've done in my CSS here. You can see main nav has its normal declarations, and it's got its hover, and then here I've drilled down where pages and the page frame, the header, and blah blah blah, all the way down to well, this is where I've identified with the controller here, so I can drill down all the way down, and then I can just reassign. In this case, I'll just change the background. You could do, of course, you know, image positioning or however you decide to do your CSS. So that keeps my CSS file clean, and it keeps all the logic to determine page and all that kind of out. It's not really even logic at that point. It's just we've been able to you know, drop in an ID that allows me with my CSS to drill all the way down to it. So I mean, obviously it's particular to the controller, and the controller and nav in this case match up. So but it also keeps it semantic. So there's no harm, no foul in adding an ID like that in your page. So anyways, that's that. It's worked out really well. It's also worked out well because there's lots of elements like a submit button or something like that, where maybe it's you don't want to change, you know, the exact same thing, where you can you're able to throw an ID on that thing. You can drill all the way down. Maybe this page, maybe the color theme is a little bit different. Well, don't write your logic or anything like that in your file, and don't bastardize your general layout file by adding new logic into it either. So it's just a great way to add some IDs. You can just drill down for whatever kind of object, whether it's a form element or like a general content box or anything like that. So under 6 minutes.
Probably.
Okay. Any questions?
In your example there, pages would be that's where you would put the name of your controller?
Yeah, if it starts at the top, so that's actually been declared by the controller. So the only time that this line is ever called or ever means anything to the browser is when this is actually declared.
Okay.
If I'm not on that controller, then it's never called. So I mean, you have to write these these active states anyways, whether you put the logic, if you ever actually hard code the logic. I mean, it has to exist, so that's just a cleaner way to do it. So thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.